Welcome, IBE families. Today we're going to take a fairly deep dive into what it looks like to work with the new ESA program and school tuition organizations, or STOs, those tax credit fundings. We want to make sure you have a very clear picture what it looks like to utilize both programs separately to fully fund your child in their private school education. My name is Kim Kirschner, and I am the Executive Director for the Institute for Better Education, or IBE. So let's get started. What we will cover is a quick overview of what the Universal ESA program looks like. We're going to answer some of the most asked questions we have to date, as well as provide you with some STO and ESA strategies. To begin with a Universal ESA overview, understand that ESA, the Empowerment Scholarship Account, is run by the Arizona Department of Education, or ADE. It is a state-funded program. Also, ESA has been around since 2011. The first tier, the original ESA, had and still continues to have some eligibility restrictions. It only provided ESA for certain groups of students. The new Universal ESA program, or what we're calling Tier 2, takes away all of the restrictions except a student must attend an Arizona private school or be homeschooled, and they must live in Arizona and their legal guardian must apply for them. To apply for the Universal ESA program, you can do it very easily on their online website at azeed.gov/ESA. Universal ESA applications will be approved by the Arizona Department of Education typically within 30 days. I will tell you that we've been told by ADE that they're doing their utmost best to have those applications approved much quicker than those 30 days. It seems to be right about 2 weeks is when you should be receiving your approval for your ESA application. Once you receive that contract, you'll be asked to sign it, and your funding will begin the quarter your contract is signed. Just want to say very quickly that this first year of ESA, the first quarter funding, the deadline was extended to October 15th. A lot of you know that. And so it wasn't so based on the funding for when the contract was signed as much as when it was applied for. I'll talk a little bit more about this in a moment, but the fact is, typically from here on out, whenever you sign your contract with ESA, that's when your funding begins. Except for quarter one, it was when you applied. Approximate award amounts are 90% of the public school funding at your home district. For kindergarten, it's about $4,000 annually, and for a 1st through 12th grader, that's $7,000. Many students are going to find their funding will be different from their neighbors or even from another child in your home. It depends on their grade. It depends on their, actually even their age. It will depend on what is their home school district. So because of all those factors, your funding may not look like somebody else in your family or in your neighborhood. Arizona Department of Education will set up a student's class wallet account to receive their funds within 3 weeks after the contract is signed. This is your avenue to make payments for your child's education. The student's class wallet will be funded quarterly between the 15th and the 30th of the first quarterly month. What I mean by that is that the Department of Education has some time to get those funds into your class wallet account. Now, I've been told the law says between the 15th and the 30th, but again, they're doing their best to get that funding earlier. So if the first quarter that your child is eligible for ESA, let's say it starts in October, their quarter 2 funding, that funding will be in place the first month in October. They have until the 15th to the 30th, but they might get it in much sooner. Class Wallet also has 4 different ways to pay. They have something called Marketplace. You can pay the vendor directly. You can utilize a debit card for most of your transactions, but not all. Or you can actually make your payments for your child's education out of pocket and then receive a reimbursement. The first 3 have a 2.5% transaction fee that is charged to the vendor, but the schools are quite able to pass that fee on to you as part of your tuition. That's absolutely fine with the law. Reimbursement, there is no fee. When you utilize the Universal ESA program, you will be submitting all of your receipts. It is required. And any unused ESA funds will roll over from quarter to quarter or year to year. Contracts for an upcoming academic year will automatically be emailed to you in May for renewal. And this is, let's say you have decided to accept ESA just for quarter 1 and quarter 2, but you cancel it for quarter 3 and quarter 4. You will not be automatically emailed that renewal contract. You have to be part of the program for at least the 4th quarter to receive that automatic renewal. If your child is 5 by January 1st, ESA will fund your child as a kindergartner even if they are attending pre-K or preschool. This has been a big question for a lot of us. We just found out about this recently. ESA, when it comes to kindergarten funding, looks at a child's age, not their grade. The reason is, if your child is 5 by January 1st, they are eligible to attend most kindergartens in the private school sector. That means because they're eligible to go to kindergarten, they will fund them. Does not mean that you can use those funds for your preschool tuition. It does mean that you have the funding to use for other educational expenses. So if you have a preschooler and you applied and you're surprised you got funding, it's because your child was actually 5 by January 1st. Universal ESA, through their website, has some amazing resources. They have a parent handbook. I would suggest everybody print out, read through it, because it will answer many of your questions. They also have help desk tickets that will give the Department of Education the opportunity to answer you in order. I've been told that sometimes those help desk tickets might take a week or 2 to answer, just due to the extreme amount of volume that they're receiving right now. As this program goes on, and we make sure year to year, everything will be hitting its stride and you will definitely be getting answered quicker. But for right now, the Department of Education has been bombarded with those questions because it's new. It's new for everybody. So, but submitting that help desk ticket, understand they will get back to you. So let's go over some of the questions that we've been receiving. First of all, do I have to switch to an ESA? And the bottom line is you do not. If tax credits are already working for you, there is no need to switch. I understand a lot of schools are really promoting the new ESA, and I get it. It's a wonderful opportunity. But for some of our lower income families, maybe ESA is not going to work. You do not have to switch. We're going to go over some scenarios of what that looks like, but you do not have to apply for ESA. You can keep with tax credits or pay out of pocket. It's absolutely up to you. Can I have one student on ESA and another one on STO funding? Absolutely you can. It's per child. So one of your children, let's say they have they get an ESA because they have a disability and they get a huge amount of funding that covers their tuition, and one of your children does not. That child might stay on STO funding and the other is on ESA. Can I stack ESA and STO? No, you cannot fund concurrently, although you can utilize each one per quarter pro rata. What I mean by that is if you decide that you'd like to use some of your STO funds because you received funding, whether it's financial aid or recommended funds through IBE, you can use that up for the quarter, first quarter, second quarter, whatever that tuition is, and then switch to ESA for, let's say, the second semester or third and fourth quarters of ESA. Absolutely fine. You just cannot fund them concurrently. Even if, let's say, you have $10,000 in STO funds between recommended funds and financial aid. Great, and your tuition is $15,000. You cannot apply that whole $10,000 to the first quarter and then use ESA for 2, 3, and 4. You have to apply only the funds that quarter's tuition would be owed. So you absolutely cannot front load or back load, but you can utilize both programs. We would never suggest going from ESA to STOs to ESA to STOs. Probably not a good idea because just the sheer volume of paperwork and trying to keep a communication between your STOs and your schools would not work. But doing it semester by semester, or even quarter one for STOs and ESA for 3 of the quarters, absolutely fine. Are recommended fund and disabled displaced scholarships the same as STO funds? The answer is yes. You cannot accept funding from an STO while utilizing ESA. We've had a tremendous amount of questions from schools as well as families saying, well, my disabled displaced award is not tax credit funding. I should be able to use that and ESA. No, if it comes from IBE or any STO in the state of Arizona, you cannot utilize recommended funds, disabled displaced, low-income corporate, financial aid, any of that. None of that can be utilized in the exact same quarter that you're actually accepting your ESA program funding. How do I know which quarter I am receiving funding? This is a fabulous question. We get this a lot, and I'm hoping to make this very clear. So quarter 1 of 2022 is the only quarter that funding is based on the application date. Every other quarter will be funded based on the ESA when the ESA contract is signed. So for those of you that are saying, well, I applied on October 13th, I met the deadline, but I didn't sign it until maybe 2 weeks later when I received my contract, will I be funded for quarter 2, which is when October is, or quarter 1? You will be funded for quarter 1, but that's the only quarter in the whole ESA program that allows you to sign your contract in a quarter after you applied. So let's say you want quarter 2 funding. You need to apply between October and December, but the fact is you really need to sign between October and December. So you want to apply before the end of November to give the Department of Education time to get you your contract, have it signed so you can have your funding start in that quarter. For quarter 3, which is January through the end of March, again, don't apply the end of March for quarter 3 funding. Apply the beginning of that quarter in January or February, giving the Department of Education time to get the contract to you so you can sign it. Because whenever you sign the contract from here on out, that will show you which quarter your funding will begin. Also, once you're funded, you will receive an email from the Department of Education letting you know it's funded. It will tell you which quarter it's for. You can even go onto the class wallet, your portal. It will tell you when your funding is as well and what quarter that is for. Can my school accept more tuition than what is owed in an STO quarter? No. Sort of alluded to this a little earlier. As soon as you receive your ESA funding, no more STO money can come through. Even if you are what some people are calling front-loading and back-loading. And what that would be, let's say you accept ESA for quarter 1, quarter 2, quarter 3, and you decide to go on STO funds for your 4th quarter. But your ESA funds didn't cover those full quarter's tuitions that was owed. There was money left over. You cannot use your STO funds in the 4th quarter to back pay anything that was owed from quarter 1, quarter 2, or quarter 3, because that is utilizing or accepting STO funds that are applied to an ESA quarter. You have to keep the quarter separate. You cannot backload or frontload. Can my school accept my recommended funds during an ESA quarter if they apply it to an STO quarter? No, STO funds can only be accepted during that STO quarter. So that's saying, let's say you're, okay, well, I'm going to use STO funds for quarter 1, and I'm going to use ESA for 2, 3, and 4. But most of my funding is going to come in for recommended funds in April. Can IBE send my April STO funds to the school then and have them apply it to an earlier quarter or what we're calling an STO quarter? The answer is no, because as soon as the school accepts those funds, and they do have to accept all funding to make sure we don't pay more than the tuition that's owed, they are accepting the funds at that time. You can't accept STO funds in an ESA quarter. What does ESA funding cover? It's actually much easier to list what ESA does not cover. They cover so much. ESA does not cover meals, before care, after care, as well as room and board at a boarding school. ESA has a very full list of what it covers on their website. But primarily, if your child is being educated with these dollars, it's going to cover it, and which is a wonderful thing. It covers tutoring. It will cover any curriculum. Obviously, it will cover anything that you feel your child needs for their education. It just will not cover any meals, before care, after care, any boarding costs at a boarding school. Other than that, it covers pretty much everything. But if you go to their website, they have a full list of everything that ESA covers. Can I solicit recommended funds through IBE while accepting ESA? This is a game changer because the answer is yes. They will not be sent to your school unless ESA has been canceled. So in order to solicit funds while you're doing ESA, first and foremost, you must be eligible for tax credit scholarships. You also must have a current application with IBE. Every year, that can't be just a one-time application, but every year you're soliciting funds. You have to have a current application because that's how you're eligible to receive tax credit scholarships. When you're ready to switch from ESA to STO funds, you must provide IBE with an ESA cancellation of contract documentation, and you will also be required to accept recommended fund scholarships through IBE. My next slide I'm going to show you is a it gives you a graphic of what this would look like. So if you're looking at a multi-year recommended fund scholarship, which you can receive through IBE, let's say year one, you're having your tuition paid by ESA because ESA covers your full tuition. But you're still soliciting funds, you're receiving dollars, and you're accumulating STO dollars. You might have been awarded your STO dollars, you have not accepted them yet. Year two, same thing, you're continuing to solicit. Year three, you're continuing to solicit. And I want to make it very clear that while you're soliciting funds through IBE, it's not like you can go to your school portal and see all the funds that you've accumulated. Because while we have made the award, they have not been accepted, and that is the law. You cannot accept any STO dollars while you're utilizing ESA funding. We have to make that very clear and the distinction, because if you accept funds from ESA and STOs, then you're not in compliance with the law, nor are we. So we are not going to allow you to accept those funds, which means you will not even be able to see them until you actually have canceled your ESA contract and you've provided us the documentation. Now, if you'd like to have an idea of what kind of funding has been coming in that is potential awards for you, feel free to call us. We're happy to give you that information, but it is not official until you accept it. And then you see there at year four, you've decided to switch to STO funds. You've provided IBE with that cancellation of documentation for your ESA account. You've accepted the funds. Now you can pay a much higher tuition with your accumulated funds and continue to solicit funds. It is a way to actually maybe let's say your kindergarten through 8th grade tuition is covered by ESA, but you know your high school will not be. Let's get those multi-year scholarships for you so that by the time you're in high school, you will not only have the funding in place, you'll have the donors continuing to donate. And I want to just show you really quickly why this works, because a lot of times, even schools or families have said, I don't understand why we can do multi-year scholarships while we're on ESA, but we can't do multi-year scholarships for more than 2 years when let's say we're in public school or homeschool. And the reason is, by law, every STO must award their scholarships within 2 years of the donation coming into place, because we have something called, we have to award 90% of all of our funds by the end of that second year, unless, and you can see where I have it bolded, unless they're reserved for future scholarships for specific students awarded next year or multi-year scholarships. So the only way we can do this is because we have to make the award within those 2 years to an eligible child. A child who is in public school or homeschool is not eligible to receive any STO funding. So because they're not eligible, we can only hold them for up to 2 years, because then we have to make that award. But if a child is accepting ESA, they are eligible as long as they've got us our application and they've done everything that we need to make that a current application, then they are eligible to receive those. Now we can do multi-year awards. Has to be to a specific student. It cannot be to, let's say, a family fund or something else. It has to be awarded by law, by STO law, to a specific student. So because of that, we're able to make the award. Then the other part of the law, this is from the Department of Revenue's manual governing STOs, just like IBE. Can a student who is receiving an empowerment scholarship money from ADE also receive funds from STOs? Well, it says very clear, the ESA statute requires that when a parent has signed a contract with the ESA program, a student cannot, and here's the key, accept ESA and STO money for the same period. A student may utilize STO money up until the quarter before an ESA contract is signed. Once there's a signed contract, STO monies for that time frame, and again, this is where it's talking about front loading and back loading. You cannot do that. For that time frame must be returned. But because it's about accepting, that's why it's so critical for an STO to take that extra step to make sure your recommended funds that you've been soliciting are not officially accepted by you until after you've canceled your ESA contract. So here's a couple of, let's say, scenarios I'd like to cover. Let's say ESA covers your current private school but will not cover for high school. This is where you want to solicit donations while on ESA, just what we talked about, because that is absolutely a reality for many of our high schools. ESA will not cover their full tuition. ESA does not cover our current school tuition. Well, you've got a choice here. You can stay with tax credits if you cannot pay the difference, because if ESA is not covering your full tuition and you cannot pay anything, you really don't have much of a choice. You have to stay with STO dollars or tax credit scholarships because we can fully fund you. Or let's say you use ESA if it covers more than you would receive in tax credit scholarships and you continue to solicit donations, so eventually you will, or hopefully will be able to switch from tax credits to fully fund. ESA funding, if let's say your annual contract is $7,000, which that's about average, what we're hearing about, it's divided by quarters, your quarterly tuition is more than that, you will pay out of pocket if you've accepted ESA for the difference. So the beautiful thing is you can continue to solicit funds and eventually maybe just switch over to tax credits because we can fully fund between recommended funds and financial aid scholarships. And if you're looking at all the STOs in the state of Arizona, you're very likely to be, we have a lot of families that are fully funded with STO dollars. They don't need ESA. You could work towards that. But if you absolutely cannot afford any of your tuition and your tuition is more than what ESA covers, that's all you're going to get. You'll need to use STO dollars. I only receive enough STO funding to cover the first 2 quarters. That's fine. You can use STO funds for the first 2 quarters, then switch to ESA for the last 2 quarters. It may not fully fund you, but it will be better than either program alone. And what I mean is, let's say your tuition is $10,000 and you have STO dollars funds for quarters 1 and 2 between financial aid and recommended funds to the tune of $5,000. That's half your tuition. So that's allowed because that is 2 quarters, so you're going to be funding just what is owed for that particular time frame or period of time. Well, you have no more STO dollars coming in, but if you apply for ESA the second half of the year, or the quarters 3 and quarters 4, you will get half the funding. So if you had a $7,000 contract annually, you'll only receive $3,500, half of that, but that's better than not having any more STO dollars. So you can utilize both programs. Again, I wouldn't jump back and forth multiple times throughout the year, but to jump once every year, that's really not a problem. ESA does not cover my full tuition and I have multiple children in private school. As I mentioned before, if you cannot cover any tuition, you really need to stay with tax credits. But if you can cover some tuition, have one child on ESA and the other on tax credits to fully fund. Continue to solicit donations for your child on ESA to eventually cover the full tuition with your STO dollars. ESA covers more than I have been able to accumulate in solicited donations. Utilize ESA during that time, but you can still continue to build up solicited funds and eventually pay for your full tuition by switching, because switching is allowed, again, as long as you're not utilizing and accepting funds for both programs in the same quarter. Keep your donors donating so you continue to have options, and keep an eye out for what I call educated donors. An educated donor is somebody who's been donating, but let's say they've stopped donating because the child they've donated to graduated or has left private school or is no longer needing tax credit dollars. Those donors are out there. They're educated donors who understand this program and the value of it. They might just be waiting for somebody to ask. And keeping your donors donating, have that choice. We don't know what tomorrow's going to look like. We don't know if ESA is going to be around indefinitely. You don't ever want to have your donors stop donating and have to say in a year and a half, could you start it up again? But if they continue to donate for you, even if you're on ESA, you have a choice. You can switch to STO dollars at any given time. So we highly recommend keep your donors donating and certainly keep an eye out for those educated donors. How can IBE support you? We work very closely with your school. IBE works with well over 330 schools. We want to make sure you understand that the relationship between your STO and your school is critical, just like it is critical for you and your school and you and your STO. Communication is going to be the key to success when you're utilizing especially both ESA and STO dollars. We are also happily available to answer your questions and concerns. If you call IBE, we're going to answer the phone and we're going to talk to you. We're going to help you through this process. We've had many of our schools say, you know what, I understand you can't get through to the Department of Education right now, call IBE. We really are here to help, and we are looking into this program. I want to become as much of an ESA expert as I possibly can so I can answer those questions. And our staff, our team, they're on track with that as well. we have some amazing solicitation tools for you. If we have another webinar that we will be doing regularly talking about how you can solicit these funds. For today, just know they're available to you and call us up if you have questions and keep an eye out for any of our future webinars. We truly want to partner with you, and that is the best way I can possibly tell you that we're going to support you. We're here for you. We are here to make sure your child has the education that they need. If ESA is best for you and you call and talk to us about it, we're going to tell you that. This is not about IBE or STO dollars or anything like that. This is about your child. That's what school choice is all about. If we can make sure your child is educated in the best way possible and help with that, we all know our community is stronger. IBE will make it as simple as possible for you, for your donors, for your school. The simpler we can make it, the easier it is for everybody, the more funding happens. In closing, how your child is educated is truly 100% up to you, as it should be. Tax credits and ESA allow you to put your child first, and partnering with IBE will give you and your child the best chance for educational success. I truly appreciate the time you've taken to watch this video, making sure you understand some of the nuances and differences between ESA and STOs and how we can work together to make sure your child is fully funded with their private school education, because as their parent, you know that's what's best for them. Have a wonderful day, and thank you.